This is the reason why a lot of people fail on YouTube. Ads, I literally just talked to somebody earlier today, and I was telling them, like, you're trying to get the people to do too much. It doesn't say call to actions. You should give them a very clear path to do the thing you asked them to do. You probably heard hook message, call to action. I don't think that's the right way to describe it, because I don't think people want to be hooked. So really what you want to do, you want to connect with the right people and then converse. How do I have a conversation? Then I can compel them to take the action that they want to take and I want them to take. But I just want to leave you guys with another level of thinking of how to really take your ads to another level.
The dude, over the last whatever, has spent $120 million in the marketing game on retargeting with YouTube. Everyone's been focusing on Facebook. Everyone's been focusing on Instagram. He's like, yo, you want to know where people aren't playing, where the money's at? He took that $120 million, turned it into $550 million. By the way, if you had an ATM machine, you put $1 in and it gave you $5 back, make some noise if you'd like to have an ATM machine like that. What's up? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that that is exactly what TOMMIETRAFFIC is going to be talking about and showing you for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to be listening really carefully because I think I'm about to feel more dumb with each passing minute as I'm like, yo, I think I need to have that guy in my camp. So do me a favor and let's make some noise for TOMMIETRAFFIC.
Sure.
Give it up for him, folks.
Chris, appreciate that, man. How you guys doing? All right, so I got a little time up here, so hopefully I'll keep my time right. We'll get everything going. So I'm gonna talk to you guys today about YouTube ads. How many of you guys in here running a YouTube ad? Oh, nice, nice. How many of you guys are running ads in general? Wow, a lot of hands go up. That's pretty good. I love to see it. I love to see it. So what I want to talk about is how we consistently scale to $5,000 a day or more. It's pretty straightforward process to actually do this. That's really what I want to get into. So just a quick background about me. I bought my first YouTube ad in 2012, about a decade now. By 2014, I had spent my first $1 million on YouTube ads. I started telling my friends, my marketing buddies, and they was like, you did what? Back in 2014 when nobody talking about this stuff. So that's kind of how like people was like, yo, such and such want to talk to you about what you told me about YouTube. And so my name kind of started spreading, and that's how I kind of got known for this, if you will. Even then I was kind of fighting it, but that's kind of what happened. So some of these faces you'll recognize, some of them maybe you won't, but these are some of the people that I've helped with YouTube ads specifically and other platforms that I've worked with on this topic over the years. So I won't get too much into myself. I'm really here to share with you guys how we do what we do. But that's my little bit about my background and who I am. So let's move forward. So first off, I want to talk about scale. Now, some people might say scale is a different metric. Like I know people when they say scale, they talking about 50 grand a day, right? Me, in this instance, we're talking about 5 grand a day. I personally believe anybody with a solid offer can spend this amount of money on YouTube if they follow the method that I'm about to share with you guys. So I just want to be clear on what I mean by that when I say that. Not only that, consistently do this for 12 months or more, okay? And we've been able to do this many, many times. We even have some clients that spend way more than $5,000 a day, but it's pretty consistent. We've been able to do this. So here's the 3 key ingredients, and this is pretty high level, right? But it's pretty straightforward, because I think a lot of times people overcomplicate this stuff. I know that there is some nuance here, but it's really basic if you break it down to these 3 key elements. The first one is creative, okay? Creative is, what are you saying? Like, what are you saying to people when they see your ad? Does that make sense? What are you saying to people when they see your ad, okay? Campaigns is who's seeing your ad. So how do I get my ad in front of the right people. Well, that's how you build out your campaigns and your targeting. And we'll get into all of that, but I just want you guys to be clear on. And then conversion is, what are you selling? What are you action that you want people to take ultimately that's going to make you money? And when you get the conversions of these three things, that's where that little money bag I got in the center right there with the little arrow, right? That's where the money at. Because if you nail the creative and you put it in front of the right people and you got the right offer, money. That's how it works, okay? Now, before I go too far, let's back up, let's slow down for a little bit. Algorithm momentum. This is something that's very, very important. Back in the day when I got in the game, so I bought my first YouTube ad in 2012. I bought my first Google ad in 2007. And back in those days, I went from Google, I bought every kind of ad on the internet you can imagine. And back then, as a media buyer, which is technically what we're called, media buyers, you had to do a lot of little ninja things. You had to know which button to click for this and that and da-da-da-da-da, right? That's not really the game anymore that we play. It's really about the algorithm and creating momentum so they can do the work for you instead of you trying to do it. You're not smarter than the algorithm. You might as well make it your friend. And that's really what algorithm momentum is about, is making the algorithm your friend so it can go and do the work for you. And so everything that I'm going to talk about, algorithm momentum is going to be the overlying key component here. Because if you can't create momentum in the algorithm, none of this other stuff is really going to matter. Okay? So, what is your path to conversion? So, we're still talking about algorithm momentum. But the reason I'm getting into this, and I know you're just like, well, you're going to tell me about YouTube ads. Why are you da-da-da-da? Because if you're running your offer, you need to know the path to conversion step by step by step. Here's why, okay? You're gonna need a conversion action set up for every step. We're talking about algorithm momentum. And in order to create momentum in the algorithm, you have to feed the algorithm. And the way you feed the algorithm is you have to tell it what actions are valuable to you. So your path to conversion are going to dictate all of the different steps that are valuable to you so that you can push that back to the algorithm. Is this making sense? Yeah, I don't think it's making sense. Y'all ain't really. Is it making sense? Am I making sense? All right, there we go. All right, so here's how this works. So this is a webinar funnel that I'm showing you guys right now. Okay, we're breaking this down. So, and this is what you got to do before you really start developing out your strategy. Like, we're starting at the top from a strategy standpoint, and we're working backwards into the ninja stuff, right? But you got to get the basics right. So in this example, webinar funnel, when somebody click your ad, they're going to go to your landing page. That's what's called the page view conversion. That's step one. Step two, if they register, they've registered. That's an action. We're gonna create a conversion action for that. Then, if they register, obviously we want them to watch our webinar, because if they don't watch the webinar, they're probably not gonna buy my stuff. So we gotta get them to view the webinar. We wanna track that if possible. You may not always, depending on what platforms you're using, this can be a challenge, but you wanna track this if possible, okay? The next thing is, and this may or may not matter in every webinar funnel, but a lot of the ones that we do, we'll use a sales page that we can send them to from the webinar to then go and buy. So we want to track that. Then we also have what's called a replay. So for some people who, they may register and they don't view the webinar live or however you deliver that, you can share a replay with them for them to consume that content. Or if maybe they was on your webinar, you got a 2-hour webinar and maybe they watched 10 minutes of your webinar, and now it's over, you can still push them back to your replay to consume your content in order to buy your stuff. So the replay is also important in the conversion path. So we want to track that. Then from the sales page, they're going to go and start the checkout process. So whether they viewed the webinar or they watched the replay, they're ready to buy, they're going to hit your sales page. And from your sales page, they're going to go to the checkout page to put their credit card in. We want to track that. And then if they finish checking out, they purchase, there go the money bag again. Like, there go the money bag again, right? So all of these actions are important in the path to conversion in this particular funnel, and we want to track every one of them. Now, some of your funnels might be a lot simpler. Maybe you do, I don't know, book a call, or maybe you sell an e-commerce product, or maybe you do B2B, or maybe you do a SaaS and you're running a demo, whatever, right? You have to look at your funnel and say, what is the path to conversion when somebody leaves my ad? What are the steps that they got to take? These are the actions that I got to track. You're going to create what's called the conversion action so that you can pass this data back into the algorithm. This is very important, okay? Now that we have that, this is where we start focusing on building momentum. Because if you're not feeding the algorithm, you're not going to build any momentum. It's not going to know anything. It doesn't know someone. Well, technically, they might know somebody hit your landing page, but they don't know if they registered if you don't tell it. They're not going to know if they viewed your webinar if you don't tell it. So giving it this data is going to feed the algorithm to give you the ability to build momentum. And in the momentum, this is not Google's rules right here, 50 to 100 conversions in a 30-day span. This is me talking. This is from my own data and what I believe. I think Google has a lower threshold. If I'm not mistaken, I see my guy Brian in the audience right there. My man Brian in the house. Is it? I think it's like 30 maybe. Is it 50? Yeah, something like that. I'm a fan of more because to me, the more you can give the algorithm, the quicker you can build momentum. It's almost like a flywheel. To get a flywheel moving is a lot of energy, but once you get it moving, to get it speeding up, building momentum, it takes less and less energy. So the faster you can feed it, the quicker you can build momentum. Now, purchases are the best. Absolutely are the best. The downside with that is depending on what you're selling. If you got a thing that's $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, you're probably not going to get enough of them to give to the algorithm to build that momentum unless you got a huge budget. If you're selling a $10,000 thing, hey, if you're spending $1 million a month, you might be having enough data. But if you're talking about $5 or $10 grand a month, you're not going to get enough data on that. So what I recommend is that lower value actions, particularly if you're new or you have a new account. That is why we take the path to conversion and we break them all down step by step. Because instead of optimizing for a purchase, because I'm selling a thing for $1,000 on a webinar, I can optimize for a registration, which is a lower value action, but nonetheless, it is an action that has value. And because I can pass that back into the algorithm, I can start using that as a means to build momentum. We use page views, we use all of them, right? So it's really just looking at your path to conversion and really trying to identify the values where you can get enough of them to hit these numbers so that the algorithm is starting to read, you're sending this traffic, these things are happening, and now you can start focusing on building that momentum. So that's really what that's about. Now, I got into that part, again, that was very strategic. We're talking about the strategy of path to conversion. We're talking about building momentum and breaking down all of your conversion actions so that you can build that momentum, right? Now, we're still talking about algorithm momentum when it comes to creative because to me, this is This could be the single most important reason why a lot of people win and lose on YouTube. I've seen people with great offers completely crash on YouTube. I've seen people with terrible offers with great creative actually make it work, which is interesting. Not like a terrible offer, but like a decent offer. Because their creative game was strong, they was able to make YouTube ads work. Versus somebody with a really great offer, but it's got terrible messaging. Most often than not, this is the reason why a lot of people fail, in my opinion, just based on what I've seen. Other people might have a different opinion on that. So I want to get into that a little bit. But I want to be specific because there's a lot of ways to run ads on YouTube, but I'm focused on a specific, for this presentation, we're talking about a specific type of ad unit on YouTube. It's called Skippable Instream, okay? And you guys have probably seen this. How many of y'all seen skip, you about to watch a video, you got 5 seconds to skip. What you want to notice, if you don't know this, is this little section here, that's called the call to action overlay. That's also the same thing right under this little yellow. That's the same thing right here and right there. It's just transposed. So this is on a desktop. And that little yellow thing right there is called a companion banner. And the 2 ways that you can fill that real estate. One, the system will automatically populate that for you from the header on your channel. So whatever your YouTube channel you're using, it'll pull the header of that channel in and it'll play it there. Or you can upload a custom banner called a companion banner, and you can customize that space. So now when someone's on a desktop, this is what their ad will look like, right? Takes up a lot, you kind of get this little piece here, you kind of got to own this space over here. And then on a desktop, what you'll notice is skip ad again, but this call to action, it sits below the video, okay? And then there's and I don't know if 100% they still have this up here, but there's a little 3 little dots you can click. You can see that information there. But the main thing is you can skip the ad, or you have this call to action button under the ad right here that people can click on, and it'll take them to your website. And that's what skippable Instream look like on mobile and on desktop. And those are the specific ad units that I'm talking about, right? We want to feed the algorithm, build momentum with the right messaging that I'm about to get into with this type of ad unit so that we can drive them to our website and into our conversion path. Is everybody with me so far? Everybody with me so far? I can't really tell. All right, there we go. Okay, cool. So, creative framework now. This to me, like I came up with my own thing because I spent a lot of time on this creative thing. Like I've invested a lot of hours of my life. My wife probably wished she could have got some of them hours in this creative and trying to really crack how to do this very effectively. And you guys have probably heard this talked about before, especially since a lot of hands went up that are already running YouTube ads. You probably heard hook message call to action. Well, I take it a step further. And because one day I was thinking about a hook. And I'm like, do people really want to be hooked? And I was like, I had this thing going on in my mind of watching the ad and they stuck a hook in my mouth and then somebody was snatching me in through the screen. And I was like, I don't think that's the right way to describe it. Because I don't think people want to be hooked. I mean, I guess you do got to hook the person, but like what's a better way to communicate that on a deeper level? And that's where connect come from. So really what you want to do is you want to connect with the right people. Also, just as much as you want to connect with the right people, you also want to not connect with the wrong people. So connect doesn't mean everybody. It just means the right person. Because the wrong person sees it, I hope that they're turned off. Because that's not who I'm trying to talk to anyway. So when you do a good job of connecting, it's sort of polarizing, right? Well, it works for some and others it repel. And you should be perfectly okay with that, okay? So connect and then converse. So most people say message. I say converse because we're having a conversation. To me, message is very one way. Just like right now, I feel like I'm giving you guys a message and y'all ain't talking back to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, see, ain't nobody even saying that. A conversation is more of a two-way thing, right? There's a dialogue and a back and forth. And when you're really engaging people, because that's really what a message got to do, it has to engage. Because if you hook them, right, connect with them, but you can't engage them, they're gonna bounce, right? You got to engage them, and in order to do that, your message needs to be strong. And really, that's why I say converse, because it's really, how do I have a conversation? Now that I've connected with the right person to have a conversation with them, then I can compel them to take the action that they want to take and I want them to take. So some people say CTA, call to action. Well, I call it a compelling action instead of a call to action, because they should feel compelled to want to do this, mainly because, obviously I want them to do it because I want to make money, but I also want them to feel empowered. And so it's just another way to think about it. Again, this is a very high-level thought process around this framework. There's loads of people who talk about this hook message, call to action type of a strategy where you guys can go and find, because I can't get into the full breakdown of an entire creative and how we script them and so forth and so on. But I just want to leave you guys with another level of thinking of how to really take your ads to another level by really reevaluating this framework through a different lens. That's really what that was about. Now, when it comes to developing your creative and you have the framework, we're always going to measure our creatives. And this for a couple reasons, right? So when we look at our view rate, we want to look at greater than 20%. And this is just kind of my own rule of thumb that we use internally. Other people might have a different one for them. But what I found is like the inflection point is usually a 20% on the view rate, your ability to connect with the right people, and a greater than a 1% on the click-through rate of your ability to get someone to take the action that you want. So these are the metrics that I'm looking for, like right out of the gate, to kind of give me an idea of where I might be when it comes to the creative that I'm running in my ad, and is it really doing the work that I want it to do? Now, here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is a video where you can see I've highlighted in green. We ended up putting all of our money towards this video because we were able to get like almost cut the cost per lead in half. The cost per registration on this is almost half these. And what you'll notice is the view rate is 20.31. It's literally that inflection point. The click-through rate was 1.91. If you look at the other two, they were lower in both of these examples. The funny thing, though, is the cost per view was higher on this video than the other two, yet our cost per registration was half that. And honestly, I think this just is a really good example of showing, like, with the right, connecting the right people with a strong, compelling action. Because that's all we were doing, is just testing different variations of a message. Like the meat and potatoes of all three of these messages were very similar. The difference was the hooks and the compelling actions. And we were able to get this lift, and it had a dramatic difference. So this is why I look at that number, and it's usually a leading indicator of what's likely going to happen with these creatives. So when we talk about measuring creatives, this is kind of like my rule of thumb when it comes to that, when we're trying to actually scale these campaigns. So looking at my time, okay, so now this is like really interesting data that we found, and I've only shared this like once with like some pretty high-end people that I mess with, like probably 7 figures on the low end, 8-figure business, multiple 8-figure businesses. But I'm gonna share this with you guys. It's really fascinating what I found in this. And honestly, like, this is the stuff that we do. We'll just take data and we'll dig into the data and we try to understand, what does that mean? Like, what does this data mean? What am I learning here, right? So we got 3 creatives. Each one, we spent nearly $1 million. Now, each one of these creatives are 3 different offers. So these are not the same account. This is not the same business. This is all different. One of them we spent almost 1.2 million on, and this is one creative, by the way, not a group of creatives. Like, this is literally one of each. And each one of these accounts, all of these creatives happen to be the control. They happen to be the one where they were getting the lion's share of the spend because they were performing so well. So my thing was, why? What is it about these? Are there things that we can learn from studying these? Here's what we learned. The hook matched the headline. So what I mean by that is, and it wasn't exact. It wasn't like the exact thing we said in the beginning of the video was the exact thing that was on the headline of the page that we're sending them to. But when we evaluated it, it was very similar. So what I recommend is that when you find a message of really good connection point or a good hook, you want to go evaluate the page you're sending those people to, because if that creative is performing well, you probably want to go look at your landing page. That's probably an opportunity for you to make it work even better. And I guess the thought here is it's they see my ad, they go to my website, and I guess people feel like they're in the right place. I don't know, but this is what the data, I just thought that was fascinating. And so now we look at everything through this lens. The other thing that we learned, the other thing is that all of these are story-driven messages. They're not these, hey, are you struggling with YouTube ads? Like, it's not that. It's literally a story. It's basically, we're taking our ideal prospects and we're putting them into a story that likely fits their circumstance. That's the way I would describe that, because again, I don't have time to go explain like all of this, but the idea is to look at your ideal prospects, and if you know them well enough, you would know the stories that would resonate with them, because those stories are likely to be their story. Because an easy way to do it, if you already got customers, is interview them and then take their stories, if you can, and use them in your ads. It's not really that hard, but anyway, story-driven message. And then the last thing, simple landing page layout. What I learned is that when you have really great stories and you know that you're focused on a primary next thing, that's why I see a lot of people mess up. And I'm laughing because I literally just talked to somebody earlier today, and I was telling them, like, you're trying to get the people to do too much. Like, your ad should be one, your call to action. It doesn't say call to actions. It's call to action, the one thing. So if you center it around one action you want them to take, and you do the job of your ad does this job, when they get to your page, you shouldn't give them 1,000 things to do. You should give them a very clear path to do the thing you asked them to do. And again, like, I wasn't telling my team this stuff. Like, inherently, we're doing these things, but this exercise really made it jump out at me, because it's like, wow, this is crazy. Because all of these all had these common elements, and now we use this internally. Everything has to go through the lens. It's like, this landing page doing too much. What are we doing? Like, why we got all of this on here? And sometimes there are reasons for that, but most of the time, I'm willing to bet we don't need a whole lot, right? Is there a message that we're developing off of? And, are we making the message that we're delivering congruent with the place that we're sending them? That's really what I learned from this, and it was really, really fascinating to find this, and I figured I'd share it with you guys. So My time is moving fast, so I gotta hurry up. So, campaigns. We talked about the first two, right? Or we talked about conversion. We kind of going backwards: conversion, creative, campaign. So this is how you get in front of the right people. This is where you get in front of the right people. So let's jump into that real quick. So we talk about $5,000 a day or more consistently. We use a strategy called scale by stacking. That just means we're trying to stack a bunch of winning campaigns on top of each other. Let me explain to you guys how we do that. So before, and I see people taking pictures, so let me back up real quick. It ain't really, I'm gonna pull this graphic up again, but I saw people like raising their phone. But the first thing you guys need to do, if you haven't done this already, is you need to set up these audiences. Go into your audience library inside your ad account. You have to immediately set these up, okay? YouTube users, for your subscribers, if you have channels already, who already got YouTube channels and running ads on YouTube. If you're not running ads on YouTube and you have a channel, you should go and create these audiences, even if you're not gonna run an ad. Because in order to ever use these audiences, they have to populate. So if you wait to populate them, you gotta wait, if you wait to create them, you gotta wait until they populate to ever use them. So I would go do this immediately. Even if you're not gonna use it, it's there. It's an asset to you now. Then you wanna set up one on your YouTube users based on anybody that viewed a video on your channel. Now there's a ton of ways to set up a bunch of different other ninja strategies, but these are the lowest hanging fruit. And then conversion tags. So remember we talked about path to conversion, right? Every step, we're creating a conversion action. You can also create an audience based on each one of those conversion actions. And in the setup, they ask you to select based on a conversion tag is what that's called, and then you would select that. So for every step in your conversion path where you set up a conversion action, you want to build an audience for those, like immediately, before you ever do anything. And what's going to happen is these audiences are going to start populating, and at some point you're going to be able to leverage them. They may not be what you're going to use out of the gate, but you'll have them. Very, very important part of the process. Now, when it comes to targeting, right, Google calls it, because Google owns YouTube, obviously, audience segments, I think is the name now, because they be changing the names on stuff on me. Again, I'm a decade in. I don't even know what they used to call it, but it's audience segments now. So, number one, and I was literally just talking to Chris and his team back there. It's like you already got audiences on YouTube. You're already publishing on there. People are already viewing your content. Go build audiences, and the very first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go remarket. Not only that, even if you don't have video viewers, you already getting traffic. Who are already getting traffic to their website? You can create an audience of people who've been to your website, and you can show your ad to those people. Customer lists. How many of you guys have a list of leads or buyers or whatever or in your database that you market to? You can upload those lists and you can show ads to those people. This is the very first step that I always, always, always recommend anyone do if they're starting out with YouTube, or if they're already doing YouTube and they ain't doing this, go do that. Because if you can't convert your warm audiences, the rest of this stuff I'm about to show you, the probability is very low that it's gonna work for you. So I always start here. Now, obviously I get it. If you start in from complete scratch and you don't have any of this stuff, it is what it is. But I bet a lot of you have something already and you're just not leveraging it. This is the first step that I start, okay? Custom audience. You can build audiences based on people's search behavior. You can build audiences based on websites that people visit, or similar to, you can build an audience of people who visit websites such as insert URL. Purchase intent, and based on apps people use. A lot of people, this is like one of those little hidden little golden ones right there. So imagine you sell, I don't know, Facebook marketing services or Facebook ads services. You can actually create an audience of anyone who uses the Facebook Ads Manager app on their phone. And you can show them an ad when they're on YouTube. Somebody searches something on Google, you can say, if somebody searched this keyword, put them in an audience so that when they're on YouTube, I can show them my ad. Very, very powerful. I love custom audiences. Sound like I hear some lightning or something outside. The other one is in market, and there's a lot of them. So I didn't really put all of the different ones on here. There's a lot of these audiences. But the way that these audiences are created, here's what you guys got to understand. Who all uses Chrome in here? Google Chrome. Gmail, Android, Maps. Man, Google collecting a lot of data on all of us. Because I use a lot of these. I don't have Android. I'm an Apple guy, but I use Chrome. I use Gmail, right? This is where Google is getting all of this data. Google knows what you're buying. They be knowing what you're going to buy before you do it. My man laughing, but because he know I'm telling the truth, right? They can read your receipt. Like when you buy something online and you know you get that little receipt in the mail after you bought, Gmail, they reading that. They know that you did that. So the amount of data that they have on people is incredible. These in-market audiences are really incredible. And I think because of just the sheer volume of data and just the nuanced level of that data that they can capture on people is just incredible. And I think that's what really drives that. Then there's affinity audiences, and these are, most people probably don't need to worry about affinity audiences. These are really big audiences. Typically these for like really big scale, broader campaigns. But basically they're Google data grouped by habits and preferences. Because again, they know your habits, they know your preferences. They know what you're putting in your app. They know that you go to the grocery store 3 times a week or whatever you're doing, because they running in the background on your phone, or whenever you put it in, address that you want to drive to, they know that. Whatever websites are you visiting, what you're buying, they getting all of that stuff out of your Chrome data and your Gmail and that kind of thing. So they have an understanding, and then they group people in based on their habits and their preferences. Really, really powerful stuff. Now, this last one, I have a love and hate relationship with. It's called similar audiences. And you cannot create these on your own. Like Facebook has something called lookalike audiences. And with lookalike audiences, you can go in, you can create them. Similar audiences have to be automatically created based on your data. So all of those audiences I said set up, eventually they can make a lookalike of those. One of the best lookalike audiences that I've ever seen are the ones that are based on similar audiences of your buyers. The other one is similar of your subscribers, very powerful as well. So you can't make them yourself, but by having all of the audiences that you've created set up, when they're big enough where Google determines they're gonna automatically create one, they'll make these similar audiences, and then you can leverage them. But again, it's not something you're gonna get right out of the gate. It's something that you have over time. But if you do all of the things that I said, when the time is right, these audiences will pop up for you, and then you'll be able to leverage them, okay? Now, here's the thing that I learned, and I got this from a Google rep. They're gonna be deprecating at the beginning of 2023. And I don't know if this is every single account, but I know like some people are not gonna have access to this, and some will. I don't know exactly who will and who won't, but if I had to guess, if you got a new account, you probably won't have this. If you got an older account, you may have this. And that's why I didn't even get into these keywords, placements, and topics. I love, love, love keyword targeting strategies on YouTube. A lot of our campaigns right now that are working are keyword based because they're relevant. Basically, Google is trying to show your ad to content highly relevant to the keyword that you enter. But they're gonna be deprecating these, and so I'm kind of talking about it, but I'm also saying I know that they're deprecating, So when 2023 get here, who knows what might happen? You have to look at your own, specific situation and figure out what's available. Placements is a strategy that I taught a lot of people, especially when I first got into space and was kind of teaching what I was doing. Specific videos and channels you can target with placements, but everybody might not have that ability anymore coming soon. And then topics, they're hit or miss. We've had some success with them, but it's not like a consistent, it's like a toss-up with topics for me, but those are gonna be deprecated. So I just wanted to share that, just, kind of what's coming down so you guys will know. And so now I'm gonna run through this last bit. I got about 5 minutes left. I'm gonna run through this last bit. This is really the campaign launch strategy that we do. So typically when we launch a new campaign, unless it's a brand spanking new account, we start with something called maximize conversion. That's really a bid strategy, right? It's just a way that you can bid is really what that is. So I just want to be clear on that when you guys go to set this stuff up. You're going to be like, where's maximize? You got to go to create a campaign, and then you use this as your bid strategy. The next thing that we do is 4 ones, or I call it 1, 1, 1, 1. What that means is one campaign, one ad group, one targeting type, one ad. Now, there are instances where we'll have more than one ad, but pretty much 90% of the campaigns that we launch, we're gonna have one campaign, one ad group, one targeting strategy. A lot of the times we're gonna have one ad, and I recommend people who are in advanced, I recommend you do this. The reason why we do this is because it's a kill losers by campaign thing. So if you look at Facebook or you study people who teach Facebook ads, you can have a campaign, and then you can have 50 ad sets in there, and then in each ad set, you can have what's called asset budget optimization, where you can tell Facebook, deliver my budget based on the ad sets, or you can do campaign budget optimization, which means here go my budget for this campaign, and you can deliver it however you want across all of these ad sets. Well, Google don't give you an ad set budget optimization or ad group budget optimization strategy. They give you a campaign, and whatever your budget is, however many ad groups you have in there, it's gonna deliver those however it wants. So in order to control that, that's why we do it this way. And so now we're testing one targeting strategy at a time, and we're just looking to build a bunch of winners. So basically what we do is we'll launch 10 campaigns. The goal is, really to be honest, 70% of them will fail, just being real. But the 3 that'll win they have unlimited upside. And the 7 that'll fail, we can limit our loss there. It's almost like a trading strategy, right? It's a stop loss type of a thing where we can control how much we lose and have all of the upside in our winners. And typically when we're launching them, we're just trying to fail as fast as possible and get to what are the winners. We get 2 or 3 that back out, we'll take those winners, convert them to target CPA, right? So that's target CPA and maximize conversions are bid strategies. So we're just converting that from get me as many conversions as you can for my budget to, hey, I want you to get me this action for this amount. Because now that I got momentum in the algorithm, I can get it to go do that for me. That's why that momentum is so important. So we convert it, and then we just launch a new set of campaigns. And so as time progresses, we'll go from 2 or 3 to 2 or 3 more to 2 or 3 more, and we're just stacking and stacking and stacking them, right? And that's how we're scaling. We might have, every now and then, we might have one campaign that spends $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a day, sometimes more than that. But most of the time, our winning campaigns are spending somewhere between $300, $800 to $1,000 a day, and then we just try to stack as many of those together as we can. If we're talking about, average account spending 10 or 15 grand a day, that's probably 20, 30 campaigns in there running right now. All kind of different budgets, but it's not like we're taking 1, 2, 3 campaigns and we're spending $20,000 a day. You can do that if you have the the appetite like that, but this to me is a much better risk mitigating strategy, and this is why we use it. So these are the last couple slides with budget planning. People ask me all the time, how much should my budget be? I always say, well, what are you selling? We just having that conversation, how much your thing is. Okay, multiply that by at least 30 or more, and you need to spend that in a 30-day span. If you're moderate, 10 to 15. If you're safe, a minimum of 5. But I say that, but I will also say spend as much as you can, but do it as a function of what you're selling to kind of dictate what your budget is, and go as much as you feel comfortable with is what I recommend. And then decisions. I talked about creative, view rate, click-through rate. If your return on ad spend is low, you might want to look at your audiences. If you're getting no or very little conversions, you probably got an offer problem. So that's kind of how you want to evaluate those. But that's pretty much how we look at decisions. So that's pretty much what I have. That's my time. I see that they about to run me off the stage. I hope that gives you guys value. That's all I got. I'm out.
TOMMIETRAFFIC! Give them a big